Hello everyone, this is the editorial analysis of newspapers for today. That is the 23rd of January 2017, and it will be presented to you by me, Dipanshu Singh. So a lot has to be covered today, so we'll skip the pleasantries and do rate and review the course and recommend each and every video. And you can also follow me on Academy on that link. So 5 articles for today. I'll leave this Indian Express one for you guys. If we have time, we can cover it. Otherwise, I have just summarized it in short points so you can take down the notes from the slides, because it's a very general article, but then I felt it's pretty relevant in the present context of things. So the first article, before start that, so the question for today's answer writing practice is regarding globalization. So do attempt this question and use the Unacademy Discuss site to answer your questions regarding this. So the first article talks about how can GST become successful. So for that, the most and the crucial linking factor will be good logistics, and what are hard and soft infrastructure regarding this. So we'll look into this. This is a very good article from Livemint. So why good logistics is the need of the hour? Because it will lead to an improvements in trade and ease of doing business rankings. As you know that India has improved in ease of doing business rankings, and Telangana and Andhra Pradesh are the topmost leading states in India regarding that. But then a lot needs to be done in this aspect as well. And the second thing is that it will also boost the Make in India program and will provide the newer market access to small manufacturers and small industry businesses. And inevitably, it will also lead to benefit to farmers. Thus, it will lower their time for the uptake of perishable goods, because if we don't have the good infrastructure and better connectivity of roads, it's difficult for the farmers to sell off their produce, because a lot of the goods they produce are perishable items. So for that they have to generally bear a lot of losses. So therefore, the GST is actually a major step forward in this direction towards fixing the logistical issues, and it will also make a common market and eliminate the inefficient taxation system, and will boost the infrastructure in the economy. So what is logistics? So basically, it is a series of services and activities that constitute a supply chain, and it can include transportation, warehousing, brokerage, etc. And most of these activities are actually carried out by the private firms, but then obviously government's role is important, because a lot of their efficiency depends on the public infrastructure. So there's a difference between hard infrastructure and soft infrastructure. This is important, which is relevant for exams point of view and can be used to answer your questions. So hard infrastructure basically refers to the physical infrastructure, which comprises of your roads, water, highways, buildings, etc. And soft infrastructure is actually required to maintain the economy. These are like supporting services at the same time. So institutional infrastructure like financial services, educational services, cultural services, and socio-economic services are a part of the soft infrastructure of the economy. And in India, actually, both of these are managed by a large number of central and state agencies. So there is a lot of issue regarding the inter-agency coordination. And what are some of the issues with logistics in India? Because logistics cost in India, is approximately 14% of the GDP in 2014, and it is very inefficient. There was an estimate that $45 billion was lost in India. That is equivalent to 2% of GDP, because 2% of GDP because of the inefficient logistics in India. And World Bank's Logistic Performance Index, so within 2 years, there's some positive news that India has improved its ranking by 35 places. But there are obviously still interstate border delays and poor supply chains, and these actually prevent the benefits of a better international connectivity from spreading across in the country. So what needs to be done? So these 3 steps have already been undertaken by the government, and they're trying to implement these. First is that they are now planning to launch the 7 new multimodal freight corridors, and on some of them has already started. These comprise of the western and eastern dedicated freight corridors towards ports. Second is the Ganga Basin inland waterway. They're clubbing the usage of inland waterway with the road transport, and eastern rail freight corridor, which will actually reduce the time of the delivery of goods. And then obviously they're planning to construct 15 logistic parks, which will act as hubs to the hinterlands. So therefore, removing unnecessary delays at interstate checkposts is one of the crucial factors in addressing the issue. There was a statistics that on an average in India, a truck moves only 250 to 300 kilometers when you compare that to 450 kilometers in Brazil and 800 kilometers in US. So that is because of the better infrastructure and roads in these countries. So another thing would be that monitoring performance of domestic supply chains, and for GST to be successful, the soft infrastructure as well needs the attention at the same time, along with the hard infrastructure. The next article talks about what are the lessons learned from the till now implementation of the Swacch Bharat mission. So there's an increased activity, if you notice, from mere construction of toilets to achieving the open defecation free status by a lot of states. So between April 2016 to Jan 2017, the number of ODF villages actually doubled to 146775. So that's a whooping number. And if you know that Kerala, Himachal Pradesh, and Sikkim have become the open defecation free states in India. But the important question is that are these efforts going to lead to a genuine change on the ground? So there are some statistics and information which are not too positive, because there is a lack of first of all, there is a lack of rigorous third party evaluation data, and that too which is available has issues of quality. The second is that in 2015 Accountability Initiative took a survey which found that there is too much duplication and misreporting of government's data regarding the toilet availability and construction of toilets. And the critical missing ingredient in this particular scheme, in spite of all the goods, is that there is a lack of institutional capacity at grassroots level. So there's a lack of corresponding investment in the administrative capacity at the grassroots level, which has actually created a race to the top, ignoring the core objective of this program. And then the second is that, which is most shocking, is that the focus is on punishment and penalization of citizens rather than creating awareness, and even to an extent to threatening people to cut off their electricity supplies if they do not use the public toilets. Other is the financial incentives are being withheld, and people are being coerced and forced to take loans to construct toilets, because sometimes the amount which is given by the government is not enough to construct the two-pit toilets in India. So therefore, citizens have been basically reduced to reluctant spectators instead of participants. So what needs to be done? So there's a need to approach this issue as an antithesis of the top-down one. So we need to go from top-down to bottom-up in this. So in the current scenario, penalization can work for some time, but not to great extent. And the prior experience highlights the need of sustained community engagement. There should be long-term investment in local governance, which is of utmost importance in this article, in this issue of Swacch Bharat mission, in order to make it successful. Obviously, there needs to be specific training and community mobilization for the officials. And there was a RISE survey on phone which found out shockingly that only 2.6% people in rural UP and 5.4% in Delhi were aware that Swacch Bharat mission actually promotes toilet use. So that is shocking. So this basically reflects, actually it's not shocking at all, because it kind of reflects the lack of on-ground engagement by the officials for this program. So therefore, focus should be on strengthening the state capacity as well at the same time empowering the local governments, which is of utmost priority. The next one is the dealing with the deadwood. So this talks about the recent government's initiative of compulsory retiring two Indian police service officers and one Indian administrative service officers for non-performance. So this is unlike which has happened before. So this issue basically talks about why the bureaucracy need to be overhauled, and the civil services. This can be used in your civil services reforms content. So one of the actual officers which was reported to have been under investigation for disproportionate assets case, and the compulsory retirements is basically in pursuance of the service rules that actually contemplate a review either when an officer reaches the age of 50 or completes 25 years of service. So this is basically mandated in the rules itself. So compulsory retirements, basically these kind of actions were long needed were long needed for corrective measures, and we also need to uphold the basic democratic principle of a healthy executive control over the civil services. And action like these basically without malice, if they are without malice or are a sign qua non to enhance the quality, currently poor standards of public administrations. So they are of utmost priority, and they are needed at this hour to basically overhaul the bureaucracy. So there are obviously some associated perks of the services, because they are well paid by Indian standards. They're already a revision of the commission pay, and after passing the exams, the system takes care of the person. But only around 10% of the officers remain current in their knowledge and exert themselves to keep them up to date. And except for a few dedicated officers, both in the higher echelons and the lower rungs, it is a sad fact that ordinary citizens mostly cannot get through to any senior member of the bureaucracy, because they are not at all approachable, and either in person or over the telephone, to express their grievances. So what are the reasons for non-performance? One of the factors that not all positions of government at the center and the state are meaningful. There's a bloated bureaucracy. Many officers do not have more than few hours of work a day, and a product of this is indolence. Basically, a long spell of inactivity leads to loss of initiative and a desire to be productive. And more appalling is the number of officers who choose to abandon the integrity and inline their pockets, basically going towards corruption-related activities. One of the biggest obstacle with this is as well the judiciary that kind of interferes and overturns or stays every administrative action against an erring senior officer. So judiciary also needs to reform this process, and they need to amend and reform and bring more clarity on certain issues like Prevention of Corruption Act we did in previous editions of the Hindu. And courts would also earn the admiration of a harassed public if they stop interfering in disciplinary matters when they are assured and satisfied that the prescribed procedures have been followed, and judicial overstepping should be actually be contained. The next article is important one on why this protest against Jallikattu, how much is it is justified. So have we failed to maintain a proper records of our cattle census? So basically this article talks about how foreign nations were able to enhance their pastoral farming with our native breeds of cattle. And the most important thing in the current situation is that whether the protest for Jallikattu, which says that the conducting the sport will ensure actually protection of native breeds, is it true or not? So in India there isn't any, the biggest issue is that we do not maintain proper records. Let's accept the fact that we do not have proper records. The 18th livestock census says that Tamil Nadu enumerates no indigenous variants, and even the Jharkhand livestock census says the same. And Tamil Nadu and Jharkhand enumerate indigenous cattle in an unsorted group. But the breed survey of 2013 estimates that the breed-wise population of several indigenous variants. And then we look at the breed development in India. While breed development has been undertaken, but then there has no herd book, and till now there is no Jallikattu herd book which is available. And the Lilith Commission on Indian Agriculture names the Patagarar of Palyankotai as an example of a breeder whose careful breeding had resulted in a Kangayam breed. So reasons for developing a particular breed is that the purpose of breeding could be used to enhance or maintain existing qualities. Breeded animals would obviously be good for good breeders. To breed animals that provide good growth to progeny, to the market value of the calves is obviously higher. So therefore, one example can be show in animals and animals used for sport need special selective breeding strategies. And Serbia has actually obtained GIS with their one of the breed smoked beef ham, and are seeking to do with another milk product. But then Tamil Nadu is yet to obtain one. So there are certain issues with the breeding, developing a particular breed in India, and history of breeding and how it countries benefited from it. So Zebu was the first which introduced in around 1500 BC. Then the Sangha later spread into Central and Southern Africa. Later around 670 AD, short-horned Zebu cattle was introduced via Ethiopia and Somalia. So the key point is that the Zebu strengthened with the genes from Gujarat, Ongol and Gir lines, and the American Brahman, the first beef cattle breed developed in US, was bred from a nucleus of approximately 266 bulls and 22 females of 4 different bows of different varieties. And Brahman is a root breed from many commercial valuable cattle breeds, including Brangas created by crossbreeding Brahmans and Angus. So these are all like facts which you can go through this article, which can be used in your answer writing, and they can be questioned sometimes regarding the indigenous breeds. And if you look at the Nellore known as Engol in India, in 1868 it first arrived in Brazil, and then the Nellore herd book was created defining the breed standards, and around 6,000 Indian specimens were imported into Brazil during the first half of the 20th century. So today Brazil actually is the possessor of 5 million registered purebred Nellore, and they're the founders of important Brazilian breeding lines like Godavari, Karvadi and Taj Mahal. So the conclusion is that the National Data Bank for India, the private players like Genus ABS India are developing gene banks and animal resources, which is important to improve our national data banks. And also national data banks need to hold samples and data of animals around the world. So these are also some statistics which you can go through from the article. And the final thing about this is that what Jallikattu as a sport can do. So if the pro sport is banned, the owners of indigenous bulls may no longer find it worth preserving the indigenous variants. And it is the untamed bull that is used for breeding, and so they may no longer be able to identify the strongest male. But also we need to remember that we are unable to identify what breeds are currently used in Jallikattu, because it is medieval to identify a herd bull through an inefficient method like Jallikattu. And the final thing is that what science has proved is that better methods to identify a herd bull are needed by identifying desirable heritable qualities and ensuring pedigree and breeding soundness and semen examination. Electronic tagging can be used. Data management needs to be overhauled. Herd bulls also should be recorded for their treatments, and a herd book or registered book should be established. Though these records enable viability of the herd over generations, and neither chauvinism nor mere goodwill is alternative to science. Only science can ensure commercial viability and ensuring pride in our native breeds. So this article, Uneasy Force, talks about the incidents of personals of Central Armed Forces showing their grievances through social media. So these are basically in notes form. Very simple article. You can just take down. I don't think there's a need of much explanation in this. So there are some certain issues with internal security because it has to be managed by state police and as well as the central armed forces. There is a conflict of interest, and there's also already a shortage of state police and police personnel, which needs to be strengthened. And then the other obviously issue is that their living standards, the kind of food they get, the quality of their training, and the discipline and the morale which is affected. So reactionary measures like these banning personnel will not do. So food quality can be improved, but comprehensive approach to deal this is need of the hour. So this is it for today, guys. Thank you so much and have a good day.